Why hello, my fairy tale fangs. By day one way, by night another. This shall be the norm. Until you take true love's first kiss, then you will take love's true form. That is the course placed upon our iconic Princess Fiona, who you can see I am wearing the themed t-shirt of today, which means it's not a Shrek video technically, it's a Princess Fiona video today. But I was watching Shrek 1 again, and every time you watch this movie, you notice something, and you're like, okay, I gotta make a video, I gotta talk about that, because Fiona's course, what's the deal with it, man? At the opening of the movie, in the storybook opening, it stated that, to quote the film, but she had an enchantment put upon her of a fearful sort, which can only be broken by love's first kiss. And there's our plot for Shrek 1. Fiona has a course, she needs true love, she meets Shrek, unconventional love, happily ever after, the message of Shrek, right? But considering it's the crux of the whole movie, how is Fiona an ogress? I mean, she was just born this way, right? Well, no, in the movie, when Donkey enters the windmill and discovers Ogress Fiona, and we as the audience discover Ogress Fiona for the first time, Fiona says this line. She says, "It's a spell. When I was a little girl, a witch cast a spell on me. Every night I become this." A witch cast a spell on me. That's a pretty big important detail to not be referenced in the 3 Shrek movies that followed this one. I consulted the Shrek guide here, and the Shrek guide for Fiona just says, after falling victim to a magical enchantment as a small girl, the beautiful Princess Fiona, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's just exactly rephrasing what's said in the movie. What's the deal? Where did Fiona get her course? So I want to delve into the details given to us across the movies over Fiona's course. I already said in the first movie that Fiona says a witch gave the course to her, and it isn't mentioned again. But the original Shrek film actually had a much different opening that was cut pretty late in production. In this alternate opening of the film, Fiona is an ogress from the very start. It's not a secret given to us, and it's directly stated that the princess was born a monster, and that she was locked away in a tower because the king and queen, Lillian and Harold from Shrek 2, said that she was such a rare beauty she was stolen away. However, Fiona manages to sneak out of the Dragon's Keep one night and makes it to a small village, where she meets Dama Fortuna, a famous potion maker who's selling some potions, including the happily ever after potion we see in Shrek 2. Yeah, this character would actually go on to become Fairy Godmother. They kind of just recycled elements of her design. But she's not a villain in this version of the story. She's simply just a plot piece to get Fiona, to have the course. Fiona ultimately passes on the happily ever after potion and instead chugs down a potion bottle labeled beautiful. However, nothing happens. Dama Fortuna explains that magic always comes with a price, and that Fiona will be beautiful during daylight hours, but when the sun goes down, she will revert to her natural, ugly form. Though I always felt Fiona's ogress form was prettier than the human form, but that's besides the point. Well, kind of the whole point of the movies, but anyways, she will told that by night she will retain her true form, the ogress form, and by day she will take this temporary human form. So in this alternate opening, there's no witch, there's no course. Fiona is just an ogress through and through that got this enchantment late in life that temporarily turns her human. Kind of like a very similar plot to Shrek 2. You can totally see where they reused that element where Shrek drinks the potion from Fairy Godmother. He's temporarily handsome or beautiful, and he wants to keep that form by midnight to give Fiona her happily ever after. So they definitely reused this for Shrek 2, but should we take these elements at face value? Was Fiona really born an ogress? Well, no, we actually can discard this whole opening. And I'm not just saying that because it was cut from the movie. There's actually quite a few deleted scenes in Shrek that add context to other things that are important. But this cut scene is from an earlier version of the Shrek movie altogether, where the story was much different. Actually, this version even mentions that Fiona is the princess of Duloc, and that the king and queen died, leaving Fiona as the heir to the throne. But an ambitious regent, this is Lord Farquaad, he's described as an ambitious regent, takes the throne. So this opening really, centralizes the Shrek universe around Duloc. There's no far, far away. Duloc is the kingdom. That's the main place where the king and queen would be, except they're dead. So Fiona's parents are dead in this version of the story. So yeah, that was cut. We can just completely jettison that altogether. Now, In the final version, Fiona obviously was cursed by a witch. It's mentioned in the film, but it isn't mentioned in that storybook opening. They just said enchantment of a frightful sort. I think at some point in development, because Shrek had a really troubled production, like crazy troubled, scenes were just moved around and cut like crazy. You know, they probably put in that storybook opening and were like, oh shoot, we didn't really explain Fiona's course, why she's like this. You know, the whole born a monster thing was cut. But we do have the magic mirror, and he mentions Fiona's course, the one little thing that happens after sunset that Farquaad interrupts. What's his deal? Was he connected to the witch that cursed Fiona? Or maybe he just used his epic web surfing and TV skills to find this out. Because I guess the magic mirror is like some sort of omnipresent being who can simultaneously access live TV and internet memes at any time. But something to think about. That mirror is hiding something. We're just putting a line that's a witch coaster. I don't know. You know, we're not going to need to flesh this out with a franchise until they did. Shrek 2 comes along, and credit due where credit's due, Shrek 2 does a 10 out of 10 job of fleshing out Shrek's world. The movie opens right away with Charming recapping Fiona's course, again calling it a frightful enchantment, but introducing Lillian and Harold, and that they discovered the course at night, and that they sought the help of Fairy Godmother, who instructed them to lock Fiona in a tower for Prince Charming to rescue her, which gives us our first bit of evidence that Fairy Godmother may play a part in Fiona's course, that there's something fishy going on there between Fairy Godmother and the enchantment that was put upon Fiona. This opening does give us a little bit of a hint that this enchantment may be explored in the movie. Unfortunately, we have little details in the film about Fiona's course. All we really get is the scene where Shrek reads Fiona's diary in the middle of the night. As Shrek says, a pretty scary book. Fiona writes that Princess Beauty, or Sleeping Beauty, is having a slumber party tomorrow, but she can't go because her dad never lets her after sunset. So we know this diary was kept after the enchantment was placed upon her. Unfortunately, Shrek does not look earlier in the book to see if Fiona mentioned the enchantment. I mean, surely if she was cursed by a witch, that would be a very memorable and traumatic experience that she'd want to put down in her diary. What we do have in Shrek 2 is the Fairy Godmother, our new antagonist, and this is where the most popular fan theory regarding Fiona's curse comes from. Godmother has the most motivation to curse Fiona, because she wants her son Charming to have the throne. And if legend is true, then Charming giving Fiona true love's kiss will break the curse. But that just kind of gets us running in circles. Why would Fairy Godmother curse Fiona in the first place, only to have Charming undo the curse? We know Godmother is capable of making a pretty powerful love potion, so why not just skip the whole ogre cursing tower rescuing business and just slip Fiona a love potion in the first place? It all seems pretty odd. It definitely seems like Fiona was cursed by a different witch. Then they went to Godmother for help, and Godmother at that point concocted the plan of putting Fiona in the tower and having Prince Charming rescue her. You know, maybe the bravado of Charming would be enough to win her over. But either way, she didn't understand the powerfulness of the curse, because the curse that was placed upon Fiona was pretty heavy, as we see in the later Shrek films. It wouldn't have worked. Charming was not Princess Fiona's true love. And the only way to break the curse is to find absolute true love. In Shrek 4, after the Pied Piper scene where he makes all of the ogres hypnotized and dance, Shrek kisses Fiona right there, thinking he broke Rumpel's curse. And it doesn't work, because it's not true love. Fiona's curse isn't broken, and Shrek's curse in that film is not broken. Because even though Shrek and Fiona are the true loves for each other, at that moment it wasn't true love. And it has to be the first kiss of true love. It has to be a kiss that symbolizes the beginning of true love. True love's first kiss. Not a kiss between two lovers that are true loves, but the first kiss between true love itself. That scene is honestly amazing. I love when Fiona says nobody came to rescue her and that she saved herself. It's all just a fairy tale. That line is so amazing. She says, it's all just a fairy tale. Don't you get it? But in that scene, we know that the curse is real. That Shrek was the actual beginning of true love with Fiona. And when he kissed her in the wedding of Duloc, that was the actual beginning of their true love. So if Charming had rescued Fiona like he had planned to do at the beginning of Shrek 2, he would have kissed her and nothing would have happened. Now allow me for a moment to indulge in my personal theory. I've always believed that Fiona was born an ogress, and it's not because of that deleted scene that doesn't matter, it's because of what's revealed at the end of Shrek 2. Harold, as we know, is actually a frog that is using an enchantment to disguise himself as a human. I know, a very common theme in these movies, that magical fairy tale creatures want to turn into humans. But we know that he had Fiona as a baby with Lillian, and from what we know, Lillian is just regular human. Lillian is just a human. So you have Lillian, a human, having a baby with a man that's actually a frog. A frog and a human breeding together. What do you get when you cross a frog and a human? You'd get like a mutant swamp human. An ogre. You'd get an ogre. An ogress. Or a human. Or an ogre-human hybrid. And maybe she was born with it. The body didn't know if it was a human or an ogre, so it decided, I'm gonna be both. A human by day and an ogress by night. And if you just look at the design of ogres, they're very frog-like. They're swamp creatures. So it kind of makes sense that a frog and a human breeding together, or a frog under a human enchantment breeding with a human, would create some sort of freaky frog mutant hybrid, which is exactly what an ogre is, if you think about it. And all that stuff about the witch cursing her, and maybe it was just made up by Harold and Lillian. Some childhood tale they told her. I mean, Fiona's very gullible. She believed she had to stay locked in that tower her entire life for true love, and she believed all this nonsense. So it's not too far off to assume that she would believe some magical tale about how she got cursed by a witch, and that's why she looks ugly. Like, the whole thing's just a lie made up by Harold. I mean, Harold literally lied he was a human. She didn't even know he was a frog. So the guy can keep a pretty good fib if you think about it. But anyways, that's my theory. And we gotta move on to another theory, the Rumple theory. Another popular theory is that Rumpelstiltskin cursed Fiona. After all, like Godmother, he's got a lot of magic that always comes with a twist. And I would even argue he's much more evil than Fairy Godmother. When given the chance, he takes the entire world of Far, Far Away and rules it as an evil dictator.
Now, Rumple is aware of the curse, since Harold and Lillian met with him shortly before Shrek rescues Fiona, as we see in the opening of Shrek 4. He also reads the book about Fiona at the start of the film. But what's more interesting to me, however, is a scene near the end of the movie. When Rumple and Shrek make a deal to free all ogres, Rumple tricks Shrek because he says Fiona isn't all ogre now, is she? And then he says, by day one way, by night another, bloody bloody blah, which sort of mockingly implies that he knows the actual wording of the incantation, which wasn't even in the book he read at the start of the movie. This is all the more impressive when you remember that it's implied Rumple spent years in the alternate timeline building his kingdom while Shrek was non-existent. You know, that egg-shaped castle, that all didn't happen overnight. Rumple actually lived in the alternate universe. Are we really supposed to believe that he remembered Fiona's exact course all these years later? Well, maybe, because while Rumple isn't the guy that put the curse on Fiona, I 100% guarantee you he knows exactly who put the curse on Fiona. He probably knew who did it in both timelines as well. Rumple is in a perfect position to know who did it. As a matter of fact, I guarantee you he knows exactly who cursed Fiona.
The most plausible theory on why Rumple knows this leads us back to that very first scene at the windmill. That a witch cursed Fiona. Exactly where we came from. Who the heck does Rumpelstiltskin surround himself in the movie? Witches. He's got witches everywhere. He's the king of witches. Where are all my witches at? So he probably just heard from one of them that they cast a spell on Fiona. And that's that. He found out about the spell. Pretty anticlimactic, I know, that this whole thing just led us right back to where we were. But it does seem like a witch just cast Fiona, and this small detail was seemingly just weaved in and out of the Shrek movies. I mean, if you think about it, it doesn't really matter that much. I know I just spent all this time rambling about it, and it is the crux for all of the whole Shrek movies. Fiona's enchantment is the whole reason Shrek fell in love with Fiona in the first place. And the enchantment allows us to look into Shrek's themes about beauty and what being beautiful truly means. Being comfortable with ourselves versus the ideas put upon us by society. But the actual way in which she got enchanted and cursed, it doesn't really matter that much. Now, this could be explored in a future Shrek film. the witch that caused Fiona is a great antagonist out there that is just left sitting unused. So it'd be really interesting to see if they tackle this in a future Shrek movie. But until then, all we know is that some nameless witch out there in far, far away put a spell on Fiona, and as a result, she ended up meeting the love of her life and living happily ever after. Truly, you never know where life is going to take you. So let me know in the comments what your theories are on Fiona's course. Is this something I'm putting way too much thought into, like all the other Shrek things I talk about? Yes, probably. But let's have a discussion. I view all these videos really as a opening of the gates to a discussion on Shrek. I want to talk all the lore, all the ogre lore. Let me know in the comments your Shrek theories. Because it's not just a theory, it's a Shrek theory. Okay, that's all I got for today. Thanks for watching, and have a happily ever after.